In this video, I talked to the amazing Garry who was a partner at Y Combinator from 2010 to 2015. He's invested in a ton of billion-dollar companies like Instacart, Coinbase, Soylent. Let's hear some wild stories of Garry working with these companies and more.
This Soylent story is kind of hilarious. I mean, Rob Reinhart and Matt Cobble, they were working on a totally different startup. They were working on networking hardware. And then Rob created an online subreddit and community for this very, very fringe thing, which was he was sick of eating ramen and pizza. And he thought, well, what if I could just make meals from a can, from literally powder? And he named it Soylent, and it grew and grew as a following. And then I remember them coming in for office hours and saying like, hey, we want to turn this into our startup now. And I was like, okay, but one thing you cannot do is you cannot call it Soylent. But they ignored me, which is good. I mean, good founders like ignore bad advice. Like in the end, you know, naming it that actually got them probably tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth of free earned media. I mean, it was totally free. Like people were pissed, right? Like anyone who's, you know, into organic food, it's an interesting counter case study to me. It's like, you know, that was a very good example of like, I gave horrible advice and I'm glad they didn't take my advice because they knew something that I didn't understand at the time, but now I understand. It's like, you know, good or bad, you know, every business is a meme now. And, you know, 9 out of 10 people heard about Soylent and they hated it. But all that it really mattered was you could get your like 1 out of 10 people who heard about it and they were like, oh, I want that. And then they became subscribers and true believers. So that's probably like the most extreme story of finding product market fit, literally by choosing like an incendiary name that would force people to talk about it. Yeah, Instacart was fun in that, I mean, that was more Apoorva never gave up. Yeah, he emailed all the YC partners and I was the only one to reply, and YC was half over. It was only a 10-week program. So I said, it's half over. You should apply to the next one. It'd be almost impossible to get you in. And then he said he like zeroed in on almost. And then he sent me a 6-pack of beer using the service that he had, and it was up and running in Mountain View.
You got into Y Combinator after it started, so talk to us about how that happened.
I applied 2 months late. Y Combinator had already started. The chances were very low of me getting in. I knew I had to do something that no one else had actually done before. So I ordered Garry, one of the partners, some beer. You know, as soon as he got it, he was like, what the hell, like, what is Instacart, right? I need to find out. He gave me a call. Next day I had a meeting with 4 partners at the same time. Next thing I know, I'm in YC.
The funny thing was, it was actually a really sort of common startup idea at that moment. Like Lyft had just been created. It was called, I think, Zimride at the time. And, you know, Uber had just like started launching UberX. So this idea of totally online workforce was a brand new idea. The thing that really stood out to me was Apoorva had actually built it. You know, everyone has the idea, but if you build both the driver app and the, you know, retail app and it's all ready to go, and he hired 2 people off of Craigslist to do it, and I was one of the first 100 people to try and download the app. And I was like, this person isn't a talker, they're a doer. Yeah, they literally have it. So it's like, it doesn't matter, you know, YC is half over. Like this is a intelligence test and I hope we pass. And I was just like, we're bringing him in tomorrow. And then they got in, and, you know, pretty clearly the best company in that YC batch, maybe the whole year. And YC funds a lot of really good companies, and knock on wood, I mean, $17.5 billion company at this point, and available to 80% of people in the United States now, which is really crazy in a matter of 8 years.
Damn.
So don't take no from an investor, I guess. And then, you know, on my end, I love people who they go above and beyond, right? I think that Apoorva was actually probably thinking about exactly that. He probably had a sense that there were other people trying to do this idea. And that's actually an interesting mental framework. It's like, go out, like find the URLs and find the people who are literally doing all the things that you're trying to do, and then make a mental catalog of all the things they're doing, and then go above and beyond, right? So that it's clear, like, you know, yes, it's a crowded space, but this is going to be the one.
Yeah, I like that. I really liked your message that he showed it. he did it. I'm sure you get emails like, hey, Gary, I'd like to help you do this thing versus, on your YouTube, I want to help you versus like, hey, I did this for you already. Let me show you.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. And what was the Coinbase?
Yeah, Coinbase was pretty interesting because this is a good example of someone who walked away from basically guaranteed money. I mean, Airbnb in 2011, at that point, had just hit $1 billion valuation. So everyone knew. I think Airbnb hitting $1 billion valuation would actually put Y Combinator on the map in 2011. So 1, you're lucky, 2, you're good. Before that, it was, only Dropbox. But I think the consensus among Silicon Valley investors at the time was, that's a really good one, but, any incubator could get one. Once Airbnb happened, it was, there's going to be a whole bunch of them. Brian was working at that company, head of anti-fraud, and it was interesting because at Airbnb, and it was interesting because he saw how hard it was for Airbnb to do even basic things, right? When you're that early with the online marketplace, it's like opening a bank account was insane back then, right? Let alone like fighting fraud and things like that. And, he basically got infected by, Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper. He read it. He walked away from basically the guaranteed place to be to work on something that was so fringe that people were afraid to use their real names when they created services for it, right? Like, Mt. Gox or, this was the land of like pseudonym, right? Magic the Gathering online exchange. So, and I remember buying Bitcoin on that, and it was, I had to wire money to, some country that, I'd never wired money to, and it felt really scammy. And by magic, the money for my first Bitcoin showed up in this like trading card website in Japan, and I bought my first Bitcoin, and it was terrible and scary. But I wanted to see what it was about. And then here was Brian again. He made the website. You could put a credit card in, and you could buy a Bitcoin, like just entering things off the website. You didn't have to go to Western Union and wire anything. It wasn't weird. He put his name on the homepage. He made it look like a bank, and that was exactly what crypto actually needed at that moment. It was interesting to see that because, that's a great example of something that's incredibly fringe that frankly people thought was a joke. I mean, it became, what we hope is actually software eating money. It sort of took like great builder, a great engineer to like take a step back and actually devote their lives to it, like take a lot of risk, like that was a guaranteed payday as close as it could be in Silicon Valley. And he said, that's not important. What's more important is like helping usher in this new type of finance that could exist. This is inevitable.
What have you invested in recently that you can share that you're like, I can see that this is a big wave, or this person's moving into a big wave?
Oh yeah. I think my favorite one right now is Shelf Engine. So we preceded it. Friends of my friends from Microsoft way back in the day. So one of them started a sandwich brand that got to like $5 million a year in revenue.
And then like sandwiches?
Literally sandwiches. Yeah. Like, sold in like, dozens of delis in Seattle at the time. And then one of our other friends, he was a Microsoft engineer. And then the CEO, Stefan Kalb, he got his friend, B. Jordan, to write a ordering software that was optimized. And it basically made the $5 million a year sandwich brand an extra $1 million by preventing food waste. And then I funded it. And then now they're doing it at like a 100x scale for the world's biggest groceries. So, Kroger, Walmart, like they're actually, groceries in LA are apparently a few percentage points cheaper because of Shelf Engine right now. And they went from 0 to, I think, 400 or 500 stores this year, and they're about to roll out to a few thousand. So, and 30% of perishable food goes in the garbage. Like no one eats it. It's just waste, and that's carbon footprint. And it's a problem that like easily is solved with software. So that's a good example of like, I know you asked what are the fastest, like, this company took like 4 years to get here, right? And, we always talk about, honestly, most startups are like sort of the 10-year overnight success. And you got to grind for 10 years, 5-10 years, like, things not working. You feel like you're going to die. It's, the company's going to die. You have to lay everyone off. Like, this is sort of the, to quote Elon Musk, like the eating glass and staring into the abyss part of being a founder. And so while everyone can sort of, look at the pedestal and they're like, look, like they did it, I want that, right? What they miss is like, there's just like so much stuff of like, it doesn't work and we're going to die and I'm going to lose all my money and I'm going to lose all my investor money and my parents put money into this or whatever it is, it's like my friends put money into this or I'm going to lose everything, right? There's sort of like that moment for like 10 years. And then at some point, like a few things break and then it's like, oh, it's working, product market fit, right? And we all, when we look at YouTube or we read like the press, it's like you see it only at the pedestal stage and you think like, oh, I just want that, let's skip to that. But no, there's like so much stuff that happened before that to even get there.
You mentioned as well long duration wins. So finding a large market that's growing or sizable and then sticking with it for a very long period of time. Like you said, I like how long you're going to do YouTube for. You're like, I'm going to do it forever.
Yeah, I want to do it for the rest of my life. I mean, as long as it's fun and hard and valuable and, I think as long as it's interesting, then it's worth doing.
I was thinking about, I biked this weekend and it was the longest ride I've ever done. And it really dawned on me. I was like, if the only reason it's satisfying is because it's challenging.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're here for, right? If it was too easy, then it's like playing video games with cheat codes. Like, on the one hand, yeah, it's sooner or later it's not fun anymore. Whenever I want to stop playing a game, I just start like looking up the cheat codes and then it like snaps me right out of like whatever I was addicted to. It has got to be hard. You want it to be hard, so. Good stuff.
Hard and I would say fulfilling or hard and rewarding.
Yeah. Rewarding is important too. Noah, thank you for having me, man.
Dude, awesome. You're the man.
We'll do this again.
That is a wrap. I hope you love the interview with Garry. If you want more startup advice, make sure to subscribe right up here. And Garry has an amazing video on his channel about billion-dollar business ideas right up here. I'll see you out there and I love you. Pew, pew. Sniper style.